So this summer, as we know, Canada is marking its 150th anniversary. 150 years of our country developing, changing, and growing. All summer, we'll be looking at different snapshots of life in Canada. And today, we're taking you to Vancouver's Chinatown. It is home to the largest Chinese population in the country, a designation it's held for more than 100 years. But for those who have spent their lives there, the Chinatown they once knew is quickly disappearing, and the heart of this community could soon be gone forever.
For decades, this has been a proud center of Chinese culture. Traditional restaurants and markets line the streets. At one point in time, it was a booming business district. But the face of Chinatown is rapidly changing.
These are the two towers side by side on Kiefer and Main Street that the community had a very visceral reaction to, just due to the height and the types of businesses that are operating in them. And people are questioning, is this Chinatown? Is this the Chinatown we want to see?
Kevin Huang is the executive director of the Hua Foundation, a nonprofit for young Chinese Canadians dedicated to preserving their traditions. He fears Chinatown is turning into a development site.
If we look at this half block here and this entire block here, both of these are new developments that went up in the past, I would say 3 or 4 years. And we really need to look into what type of businesses are occupying them, as well as can the existing ones still support the people that want to have certain cultural practices around food? Because food security also entails not just nutrition-wise, but it's also appropriateness. You can't force or demand people to eat items and food items that they're not comfortable eating. So there's also a sense of humaneness that we are losing if we're not providing for the culture appropriate aspect of our food.
More than 500,000 people live in Vancouver. Nearly 30% of the city's population is Chinese. But each year, traditional Chinese businesses continue to disappear. Green grocers, fishmongers, and barbecue meat shops. 50% gone in the past 6 years alone.
This is one of the last 4 remaining green grocers in the neighborhood. There is a concentration of produce stores that are remaining, as well as the 2 remaining fishmongers. So we are losing a lot of these fresh produce and fresh food businesses quite quickly in the neighborhood. These are still buying from local farmers and distributors and producers. So it is still providing an entire local economy that services people's well-being as well as jobs.
One of the biggest problems? Soaring real estate costs, a concern all too familiar to many Canadians, but even more dire for a community earning less than half as much as the rest of Vancouver's population.
We are racing against time in some ways. Both people retiring, properties being sold, the housing market, to the time that's needed for people that do want to take over businesses and or create their own businesses to kind of invent their own way and become an entrepreneur. And that environment right now in Vancouver is just crushing due to the affordability crisis. Like the restaurant industry, and to our knowledge, is not doing well. So what does that mean for us if we want to do culturally appropriate restaurants that are often, if not kind of mixed in with some hybridity that some restaurants here practice? Traditional style is often tied to a lower price bracket, unfortunately. And why is that? Why aren't we valuing, say, Chinese cuisine the same as, say, French cuisine? Why can you charge $30 for an entree, but only $15 at a Chinese restaurant? So these are real concerns around socioeconomic ties to race.
Even with high-end businesses moving in, Chinatown remains one of the poorest neighborhoods in Vancouver. Most of the Chinese seniors here are low income. This is the last place in the city providing accessible housing, but as new businesses move in, there's no telling how long that will last, leaving the people who rely on these shops and services with nowhere to go.
What happens to all the people that are either pushed out, retired, even if they do have succession planning with the next generation, for example? Can they afford to go into spaces? Can the community afford to buy produce, say, from this place here? Are we creating affordable spaces and inclusive spaces for the community, especially the proximity to, say, downtown East Side, which is one of the poorest neighborhoods across Canada? So what does that mean for us if we are kind of just creating spaces and zones of exclusion? for a neighborhood that has been marginalized for so long.
The city has implemented a revitalization plan to try and address some of these concerns. The plan aims to preserve Chinatown's heritage, but it also allows for increased condo development with buildings up to 150 feet tall.
Chinatown has been known for its unique, low-rise, very narrow frontage, separate buildings, and this is huge developments with that doesn't really speak to that character in some ways.
As family-run shops struggle to keep their doors open and trendy coffee shops pop up in their place, concerns grow by the day here that this once thriving neighborhood is now a dying one.
People are realizing there is an identity at stake here. If we are allowing other communities in some ways to write the history for us and or be representative of us. And I just have to say that, yeah, even for me, this is not a space that I can say full ownership of. I prefer to see myself as a guest in this long-standing community, and how do I, a person that works and plays in this neighborhood, contribute to it and in a respectful way for the community.
Now, since our time in Vancouver, more than 300 community members spoke out during 4 days of public hearings on a controversial condo project in Chinatown. Next Tuesday, Vancouver City Councillors will decide whether to approve the project. And if built, the condo development will stand at 118 feet tall. Tomorrow, we head to Halifax to learn more about the legacy and memories of Africville.